Marcus Ellison stood rigid in Atlanta's sweltering courtroom, pulse racing, as Judge Raymond Caldwell's sneer sliced through the air. The gavel crashed, rushing a guilty verdict on baseless assault charges. Murmurs erupted, spectators certain. Marcus's life was shattered, yet his eyes met Caldwell's, a subtle smirk flickering. Why wasn't he crumbling? Caldwell, smug, assumed another black man was broken, blind to Marcus's secret. He was the Supreme Court's new clerk. This fleeting win veiled a storm, threatening Marcus's future. What would he unleash next? Before diving deeper, let me know where you're watching from. If you stand for justice, hit that like button and subscribe, because tomorrow's episode is one you won't want to miss. Stay tuned for the fight ahead. 2 weeks before the gavel's echo, Marcus Ellison's life was a tightrope of ambition and caution. At 32, he was a black lawyer in Atlanta, sharp as a blade, his mind a vault of legal precedent, his heart set on justice. He'd just secured a clerkship with a Supreme Court justice, a dream forged through nights of study and days dodging systemic traps. That evening, under a humid Georgia sky, he walked home through his neighborhood, a mix of sagging porches and blooming pride, unaware a storm was brewing. His phone buzzed with congratulations from colleagues, but his steps quickened, sensing eyes on him. A white woman, Karen Hensley, watched from her porch, her gaze narrowing as Marcus passed. She'd moved in 6 months ago, her complaints about noise and suspicious types already infamous. Marcus kept his head down, knowing her kind too well, but he couldn't dodge what came next. Sirens wailed, slicing the dusk. 2 police cruisers screeched to a halt, officers leaping out, guns drawn, shouting for Marcus to hit the ground. His pulse spiked, but he raised his hands slow, voice steady, announcing he was unarmed. They didn't care. A burly cop, badge. Glinting slammed him against a fence, cuffs biting his wrists. Neighbors peeked through blinds, phones filming, but none dared step out. Karen stood smug, arms crossed, claiming Marcus had shoved her, tried to break into her house. Her story was flimsy, her eyes cold, but the cops ate it up, hauling Marcus to the precinct like a trophy. At the station, fluorescent lights buzzed over cracked tiles. Marcus sat chained to a table demanding a lawyer, but the detective, a grey-haired man with a smirk, tossed a fabricated report at him. Assault, trespassing, resisting arrest, all pinned on a man who'd done nothing but walk home. Marcus's mind raced, piecing together Karen's motive. He'd seen her name before, in old case files, a pattern of complaints against black neighbors, all dropped for lack of proof. This wasn't random. It was a trap, and he was the mark. Released on bail by dawn, Marcus didn't sleep. He dove into research, pulling court records at his firm's office, a cramped space stacked with legal books. Karen Hensley had filed 6 false claims in 3 years, each targeting black men, each dismissed but never punished. He tracked down a witness from one case, a mechanic who'd caught her lying. The man's voice shook over the phone, warning Marcus she had friends in high places. Undeterred, Marcus built a file, his fingers flying over keys, compiling evidence to shred her credibility. He reached out to his community, a network of activists and church leaders, rallying them to pack the courtroom. They spread word online, hashtags flaring, demanding justice for Marcus. His inbox filled with support, but also threats, anonymous. Emails calling him slurs, promising worse if he fought back. He ignored them, focus razor-sharp, knowing the clerkship hung in the balance. If he lost this case, the Supreme Court might reconsider, deem him a liability. The stakes weren't just personal, they were a beacon for every black kid dreaming big in a system built to crush them. Marcus filed a motion to dismiss, attaching Karen's history, and hand-delivered it to the courthouse, a looming stone building that smelled of wax and power. He expected Judge Raymond Caldwell, assigned to the case, to review it fairly. Caldwell was a legend in Atlanta, 62, silver-haired, with a reputation for swift rulings. Marcus didn't yet know the man's heart, how it festered with contempt for men like him. At a preliminary hearing, Caldwell barely glanced at the motion, his voice clipped, scheduling a trial for the next week. Marcus blinked, stunned. A week? Cases like this took months to prep. The prosecutor, a wiry man with shifty eyes, smirked, sensing blood. Marcus argued for more time, citing his evidence, but Caldwell cut him off, muttering about cleaning up Atlanta's streets. The room felt smaller, the air thick with bias. Marcus's allies whispered in the gallery, sensing a setup. But he kept his cool, nodding to his lawyer, a young black woman named Lena, who'd taken his case pro bono. Back at his apartment, Marcus pored over strategy with Lena, their table, buried in papers. They tracked down a second witness, a delivery driver who'd seen Karen unharmed minutes after her alleged assault. His statement was gold, corroborating Marcus's innocence. They filed it with Caldwell's clerk, a nervous man who promised to pass it along. Marcus felt a spark of hope, picturing the judge reading it, dismissing the case before trial. Lena warned him not to trust the system, her eyes hard from years, fighting its gears, but Marcus clung to logic, believing truth could win. That night he called his mother, her voice warm but worried, urging him to be careful. He promised he would, not mentioning the death threats piling up, each one uglier than the last. By morning, Marcus's hope cracked. Lena burst into his office, phone in hand, showing a court update. Caldwell had fast-tracked the trial, moving it to 3 days away, claiming an urgent docket. The clerk had misplaced their witness statement, and the motion to dismiss was buried under a flood of new filings, all stamped with Caldwell's approval. Marcus's stomach churned, realizing the judge wasn't just careless. He was playing dirty, rigging the game to bury him. Lena slammed her fist on the desk, cursing the system, but Marcus stayed calm, his mind already shifting. He'd face Caldwell head-on, turn the trial into a stage to expose the lies. The community rallied, harder, planning to flood the courthouse, their chants already echoing in his head. He updated his Supreme Court contact, a justice's aide, assuring them the charges were baseless, but their reply was curt, warning that any conviction could end his clerkship before it began. Marcus hung up, jaw tight, knowing he wasn't just fighting for freedom but for a future he'd bled to earn. As he prepped, a news alert pinged. Caldwell had given an interview, vowing to crack down on crime, his eyes glinting as he mentioned Marcus's case without naming him, calling the defendant a threat to decent folks. Marcus recognized the dog whistle, the coded hate meant to paint him as less than human. The trial loomed, a trap tightening, but Marcus stood taller, his resolve ironclad. Caldwell thought he'd crush him fast, but Marcus was ready to flip the script, unaware the judge's next move would hit harder than he could imagine. Marcus Ellison stepped into the Atlanta courthouse, the air heavy with polish and prejudice, his navy suit crisp, but his nerves electric. The trial's first day loomed, a battle he'd prepped for like a general, knowing Judge Raymond Caldwell's fast-tracked trap was set to snap shut. At 32, Marcus was no stranger to courtrooms, but this one felt different, a coliseum where justice was a prop, and he was the prey. The gallery buzzed, packed with his supporters, black and brown faces mixed with a few curious whites, all whispering as Caldwell took the bench, his silver hair glinting under fluorescent lights, eyes cold as marble. Marcus's lawyer, Lena, leaned close, her voice a low fire, urging him to stay sharp, warning that Caldwell's smirk meant trouble. The prosecutor, a lean man named Vickers, strutted like a peacock, laying out the assault charge with venom, painting Marcus as a predator who'd terrorized Karen Hensley, the white neighbor whose lies sparked this mess. Marcus clenched his jaw, itching to speak, but Lena's hand on his arm kept him still, her eyes saying, "Wait." Vickers called Karen first, her blonde hair pulled tight, her voice quivering with rehearsed fear as she recounted a fabricated shove, claiming Marcus loomed over her doorstep, fists raised. The jury, a mix of skeptical and swayed faces, leaned forward, some nodding, others frowning. Marcus caught a juror's eye, a black woman with braided hair, her gaze steady, giving him a flicker of hope. Lena rose, her cross-examination a scalpel, slicing into Karen's story, exposing gaps, no bruises, no witnesses, no proof. She pressed Karen on her 6 prior complaints, all against black men, all dropped. Karen stammered, her face flushing, and Marcus felt the room tilt, jurors whispering, sensing her deceit. He allowed himself a breath, thinking Lena's questions had cracked the case wide open. The black juror nodded slightly, and Marcus pictured the charges crumbling, his clerkship safe, his name cleared. But Caldwell's gavel cracked like thunder, his voice sharp, calling a recess, claiming a procedural issue. Marcus frowned, sensing a shift, but Lena whispered it was just a delay, urging him to prep their witness, Jamal, a black shop owner who'd seen Karen unharmed that night. Jamal waited in the hall, his apron still dusted with flour, nervous but ready, his testimony a lifeline. Marcus coached him, grateful for his courage, knowing his store sat across from Karen's house, his eyes catching her lie in real time. Back in session, Lena called Jamal, but Caldwell's face twisted, his voice booming that Jamal was disqualified, citing a last-minute filing error Lena never made. Marcus's stomach dropped, his hope gutted as Lena argued, her voice rising, demanding proof of the error. Caldwell ignored her, waving Vickers to proceed, the prosecutor grinning like he'd won a prize. The gallery murmured, anger rippling, but Caldwell's glare silenced them, his power absolute. Marcus scribbled notes, mind racing, refusing to break. Without Jamal, their case leaned on his own testimony, a riskier play, but he had no choice. Lena prepped him fast, urging him to speak from the heart, let the jury see his truth. Marcus took the stand, his voice steady, recounting the night, the sirens, the cuffs, Karen's lies. He didn't just defend himself, he turned the trial into a mirror, reflecting Atlanta's scars, the way black men were hunted, judged, discarded. He spoke of his clerkship, not to boast, but to show what was at stake, a chance to reshape justice from the Supreme Court's shadow. His words landed hard, jurors shifting, the black woman wiping a tear, even a white juror, a grey-haired man nodding slowly. The room felt alive, electric, as if Marcus had flipped the script, turned Caldwell's trap into his stage. Supporters in the gallery leaned forward, fists clenched, silently cheering. Lena's eyes shone, sensing a tide turning, whispering they'd done it. The jury was theirs. Marcus stepped down, heart pounding, believing he'd cracked Caldwell's, armor expecting Vickers to fumble the rebuttal. The gallery buzzed louder, hope rising, but Caldwell's face stayed stone, his fingers tapping, a predator waiting. He called another recess, shorter this time, his voice clipped, ordering everyone back in 10 minutes. Marcus sat, adrenaline high, picturing the jury deliberating, dismissing the charges, his life snapping back into place. Lena warned him not to celebrate yet, her instincts sharp, but Marcus couldn't help it. The room's energy was his fuel. 10 minutes stretched to 20, then 30, the delay gnawing at him. Whispers spread, something was off. Lena checked her phone, frowning, finding no updates. Finally, Caldwell returned, his stride heavier, his eyes glinting with something new, not defeat, but menace. He resumed the trial, but instead of Vickers, he called a bailiff who handed him a sealed envelope. Caldwell opened it slowly, his lips curling, announcing new evidence submitted by the prosecution to be presented tomorrow. Marcus froze, Lena's face paling as Caldwell described a video, allegedly showing Marcus threatening Karen, caught on a neighbor's camera. The gallery gasped, supporters shouting, but Caldwell's gavel slammed, threatening contempt. Marcus's mind spun, knowing no such video existed, not from that night, not ever. Lena objected, demanding details, but Caldwell shut her down, adjourning. For the day, leaving the jury with that poison, their faces now doubtful. The black woman's gaze uncertain. Marcus staggered out, the courthouse air suffocating. Lena pulling him aside, promising to fight the video, but her voice wavered, sensing a deeper game. Marcus nodded, jaw tight, his hope from moments ago ash. He overheard two clerks in the hall whispering about Caldwell meeting Vickers late, their laughs low, conspiratorial. Marcus realized then, Caldwell wasn't just rushing him to jail, he was building a guillotine, crafting lies to bury him forever. The video wasn't a mistake. It was a blade, sharpened in secret, and tomorrow it would swing. If you're raging at Caldwell's dirty tricks, comment 1 to call him out. Hit like to stand with Marcus and subscribe for the next twist, because this fight's only getting hotter. What happens when a lie spreads faster than truth? If Marcus's speech moved you, comment 1 to cheer his fire, smash that like for justice, and subscribe to see his next move because this story's about to explode. Will a fake video bury his dreams? If you're stunned by this setup, comment 1 to demand fairness, tap like for Marcus's fight, and subscribe for more because the truth is slipping away. Can he outsmart Caldwell's trap? The Atlanta courthouse's shadow lingered over Marcus Ellison as he stepped into the muggy dawn, the weight of Judge Raymond Caldwell's courtroom bomb still sinking in. That fake video, promised to paint him as a thug threatening Karen Hensley, hadn't hit yet, but Marcus knew it was a ticking grenade. At 32, he'd faced lies before, but this felt different. A blade aimed at his heart, his Supreme Court clerkship dangling by a thread. By noon, his fear became reality. His phone buzzed endlessly, notifications flooding in, each one a gut punch. A grainy clip surfaced online, posted by an anonymous account, but spreading like wildfire across social media, news sites, talk shows. It showed a man, face blurred but wearing Marcus's jacket, looming over Karen's porch, voice distorted, shouting threats. The caption screamed his name, branding him a menace, a criminal hiding behind a law degree. Comments piled up, thousands in hours, slurs and hate drowning out his supporters, calling for his arrest, his ruin. Marcus watched the video in his apartment, Lena by his side, her laptop open, both frozen as the clip looped. It was a lie, frame by frame, but clever. The jacket a perfect match, the setting eerily close to Karen's street. His chest tightened, knowing millions now saw him as a monster, not a man fighting for truth. Lena cursed, slamming her fist, saying they'd sue for defamation, but Marcus shook his head, seeing the bigger play. This wasn't just about court, it was about destroying him, his clerkship, his future. The Supreme Court's office called, their tone icy, questioning his status, warning that public scandal could end his appointment before it began. Marcus promised to clear his name, but the line went dead, leaving silence heavier than stone. He barely slept, eyes burning, diving into the video's source. Lena traced its upload to a sketchy server, pinging to a tech firm called Brightwave, buried in Atlanta's corporate sprawl. Marcus knew the name, a whisper in legal circles, tied to dirty campaigns, data hacks, favors for the powerful. He cross-checked. Court records finding Brightwave's CEO, Nathan Holt, had donated to Caldwell's re-election years back, their ties hidden but real. Marcus's pulse quickened, sensing a thread to pull, a chance to unravel Caldwell's web. He needed proof, fast, before the video sank him deeper. With Lena handling court prep, Marcus drove to Brightwave's headquarters, a glass tower gleaming like a fortress. He bluffed his way past security, claiming a legal consult, his suit and charm disarming the receptionist. Holt's office was sleek, all chrome and ego, the man himself a wiry 50-something with eyes like a hawk. Marcus didn't waste time, laying out the video, accusing Holt of forging it. Holt laughed, smug, denying everything, but his fingers twitched, betraying nerves. Marcus pressed, mentioning Caldwell, watching Holt's face pale just a fraction. He leaned closer, voice low, promising exposure, jail, ruin. Holt cracked, not fully but enough, muttering about a client, no names, who paid for rush jobs, videos, that bend truth. Marcus recorded it secretly, his phone tucked in his pocket, heart racing as Holt's words spilled, vague but damning, hinting at a setup tied to the courthouse. He left with a partial confession, not airtight, but a spark. Enough to light a fire. Back home, Marcus and Lena planned to leak the recording to a blogger, someone clean, untied to Caldwell's reach. They edited the audio, masking Holt's name to protect their move, aiming to flip the narrative, show the video was a lie. Marcus felt a surge, picturing the jury hearing it, the public turning, his clerkship safe. He emailed the Supreme Court, again attaching Holt's words, swearing he'd prove his innocence. The blogger posted it at midnight, and by morning the story shifted, headlines questioning the video's truth, activists amplifying the audio, Marcus's name trending for hope, not hate. He walked taller, thinking he'd outmaneuvered Caldwell. the judge's plan crumbling under scrutiny. Lena warned him to stay sharp, but Marcus couldn't help it. The tide felt his, the courtroom battle winnable. Then his phone lit up. A new email, not from the blogger but an unknown sender. He opened it and his blood ran cold. It was his Supreme Court correspondence, private letters with the justice's aide, detailing his clerkship, his dreams, now public, twisted by a news site claiming he'd lied about his role, faked his credentials, scammed his way to power. The article spread faster than the video, outlets piling on, calling him a fraud, a danger, unfit for law, let alone the nation's highest court. Marcus's hands shook, checking his accounts, finding his email hacked, passwords changed, his digital life gutted. Lena traced the breach, her face grim, linking it to Brightwave's servers, a second blow Holt hadn't admitted. The jury, already poisoned by the video, now saw the article. Their faces in court next day harder, colder, the black woman juror's gaze averted, doubt replacing her tears. Marcus's supporters rallied online, but the smear drowned them, his name now mud in every headline. He called the Supreme Court, voice cracking, begging for time, but the aide's tone was final, saying the justice needed stability, not scandal. Marcus hung up, staring at his apartment's peeling walls, the weight of Caldwell's reach crushing him. He pictured the judge in his chambers, laughing, toasting Vickers, their plan not just to convict, but to erase him. Lena dug into the hack, finding traces of Caldwell's allies, a network of favors tying courthouse to corporation, but proof was thin, time thinner. Marcus's family called, his mother's voice trembling, saying reporters camped outside her house, neighbors shunning, them fear creeping in. He promised to fix it, but his words felt hollow, the clerkship slipping, his fight teetering. The trial loomed tomorrow, the video set to play, the article's lies fueling Vickers's closing. Marcus sat alone, Holt's recording still his. Ace, but Caldwell's shadow loomed larger, a machine grinding him down. He clenched his fists, vowing to stand, to strike back, but the air felt thinner, the walls closer, Caldwell's next move already forming, a hammer waiting to fall. Marcus Ellison's apartment felt like a bunker, its dim light casting shadows over his cluttered desk, papers strewn like wreckage from the storm Judge Raymond Caldwell had unleashed. The fake video branding him a thug still burned online, now, joined by hacked emails painting him a fraud, his Supreme Court clerkship teetering on collapse. At 32, Marcus had faced lies, but this cut deeper, a betrayal brewing closer than he'd imagined. Lena, his lawyer, paced beside him, her phone glowing with bad news, her voice tight, saying they needed a miracle to counter Caldwell's machine. Marcus nodded, but his mind snagged on a call he'd gotten that morning from his mentor, Clarence Brooks, a 60-year-old black attorney whose framed photo hung in Marcus's office, a beacon through law school's grind. Clarence had been quiet lately, too quiet, dodging Marcus's texts since the trial began. When he finally called, his voice was off, heavy, asking to meet at a diner, alone, urgent. Marcus drove through Atlanta's dusk, the city's skyline, a mix of gleam and grit, pulling into a lot where neon buzzed over cracked pavement. The diner smelled of grease and coffee, its booths half empty, Clarence waiting in the back, his grey suit rumpled, eyes darting like a man hunted. Marcus slid, in heart sinking at Clarence's slump, so unlike the titan who'd taught him to wield law like a sword. He asked what was wrong, but Clarence dodged, talking in circles, asking about the trial, the video, the emails, his tone probing, not warm. Marcus pushed back, sensing a rift, demanding why Clarence had ghosted him when he needed guidance most. The older man sighed, hands trembling, admitting he'd heard rumors, courthouse whispers tying Marcus to trouble, questioning his clerkship's legitimacy. Marcus's blood boiled, hearing Caldwell's lies echoed in his mentor's mouth, but Clarence's next words froze him. He'd met Caldwell weeks ago, a private chat, where the judge dangled a federal judgeship, a dream Clarence chased for decades. In exchange, Caldwell asked for dirt, anything to sink Marcus's case, his reputation. Clarence swore he'd refused, but his eyes flicked away, and Marcus's gut screamed he was lying. He leaned closer, voice low, accusing Clarence of feeding. Caldwell intel, the video's timing, the email hack, all too neat to be chance. Clarence flinched, stammering, claiming he'd only shared harmless talk, old case notes, nothing serious. But Marcus saw through it, the guilt in his mentor's slump, the way his hands gripped the table, confessing without words. He pulled out his phone, secretly recording, goading Clarence to spill more, asking why he'd betray a man he'd called son. Clarence cracked, voice breaking, admitting he'd passed Caldwell scraps, emails about Marcus's strategies, thinking they'd stay small, never dreaming they'd fuel a smear. He begged forgiveness, saying Caldwell's power scared him, the judgeship a lure he couldn't resist, a chance to break ceilings for black lawyers, even if it meant hurting one. Marcus's heart shattered, not just for the betrayal but for Clarence's fall, a giant reduced to a pawn. He left the diner, recording saved, his mentor's sobs fading behind him, the night air thick with betrayal's sting. Back home, Marcus played the audio for Lena, her face hardening as Clarence's voice filled the room. A confession tying Caldwell to the leaks, the video, the lies. They burned a copy, Marcus's hands steady despite his rage, knowing this could flip the trial, expose Caldwell's corruption, save his clerkship. He contacted a state ethics board, a panel meant to police judges, filing a formal complaint, with Clarence's recording attached, detailing Caldwell's schemes. Lena warned the board was slow, often cozy with judges like Caldwell, but Marcus felt a spark picturing the judge's face when investigators knocked, his empire cracking. He emailed the Supreme Court too, sending the audio, swearing he'd clear his name, begging for time. For a day, hope flickered, his supporters online amplifying the complaint, hashtags trending demanding Caldwell's robe. Marcus walked taller, thinking he'd turned the tide, Clarence's betrayal a weapon now, Caldwell's grip loosening. Then his phone rang, an unknown number, a voice cold, official, from the ethics board. His complaint was dismissed, they said. Insufficient evidence, Clarence's audio too vague, no direct link to Caldwell's actions. Marcus argued, voice rising, but the voice cut him off, saying worse, they'd opened a probe against him for ethics violations based on complaints, alleging he'd coerced Clarence, fabricated claims to smear a judge. His law license was suspended, effective immediately, pending review. Marcus stood frozen, the phone slipping, Lena catching it, her eyes wide as she read the follow-up email, confirming the suspension, citing anonymous tips, all stamped with Caldwell's invisible smirk. The board's bias screamed through, its members tied to Caldwell's allies, a network Marcus hadn't seen, deeper than he'd feared. His clerkship hung by a fraying thread, the Supreme Court aide's latest email, curt, saying a suspended license could end his role. No debate. Marcus's world tilted, but worse came that night. His mother called, voice shaking, saying vandals had struck their family home 20 miles away, spray-painting slurs across its walls, smashing windows, tires slashed on her car. She whispered of neighbors staring, some helping, others turning. Away, fear creeping into her voice, asking Marcus to stop fighting, to save them all. He promised he wouldn't, but his words felt thin, guilt clawing him, knowing Caldwell's goons had struck, their message clear. Quit or bleed. Lena urged him to hide, regroup, but Marcus refused, eyes hard, the recording still his ace even if the board betrayed him. He pictured Caldwell in his chambers, toasting this blow, thinking Marcus broken. But Marcus wasn't done, his resolve, iron, ready to strike back, unaware Caldwell's next trap was already set, bigger, crueler, aimed at his soul. If you're gutted by Clarence's betrayal, comment number 1 to call it out, hit like to stand with Marcus and subscribe for the next blow because this fight's getting raw. What happens when trust turns to ash? If you're raging at Caldwell's untouchable power, comment number 1 to demand justice. Smash like for Marcus's heart and subscribe to see his stand, because the system's claws are tightening. Can he rise when allies fall? If you're stunned by this board's corruption, comment number 1 to expose it, tap like for Marcus's fight, and subscribe for more, because truth's slipping fast. Will Caldwell's empire ever crack? Marcus Ellison's world felt like it was crumbling, the sting of Clarence's betrayal and the ethics board's betrayal slicing deeper than any blade. His law license was suspended, His Supreme Court clerkship hung by a fraying thread, and his family's home bore the scars of vandals sent by Judge Raymond Caldwell's shadowy allies. At 32, Marcus had fought battles, but this was a war, and Atlanta's humid air seemed to choke him as he paced his apartment, Lena's voice a steady anchor urging him to strike back. The trial loomed, Caldwell's fake video and hacked, emails poisoning the jury, but Marcus refused to fold, his resolve a fire that burned hotter with every blow. He stared at his phone, scrolling through messages from supporters, activists who'd rallied since the case began, their words a lifeline. Amid the hate flooding his inbox, slurs, threats, promises of worse, all fueled by Caldwell's lies. But Marcus saw a spark in the support, a chance to turn the tide. He called a meeting with his community, gathering in a church basement, its walls lined with posters of civil rights heroes, the air thick with coffee and hope. 50 faces packed the room, young and old, black and brown, some white, all angry, chanting Marcus's name, demanding justice. He stood at a rickety podium, voice steady, laying out Caldwell's corruption, the video, the hack, Clarence's confession, the board's betrayal. He didn't sugarcoat the vandalism, his mother's fear, but used it as fuel, calling for a protest outside the courthouse, a stand to show Caldwell the city wouldn't bow. The room erupted, fists raised, phones lighting up, planning a march, to flood the streets when the trial resumed tomorrow. Marcus felt their energy, a pulse that drowned out his fear, picturing thousands shaking Caldwell's throne, his clerkship saved by truth's roar. By dawn, the plan spread online, hashtags trending, local news picking up whispers of a rally, framing Marcus as a hero, not a thug. He met Lena at a diner, her laptop open, drafting a motion to suppress Caldwell's video, arguing it was tampered. Marcus added a new play, contacting a federal judge, Sarah Nguyen, known for fairness, untied to Caldwell's web. He filed a petition with Nguyen's court, attaching Clarence's audio, the video's metadata, emails proving the hack, begging for a review to pause his trial, expose Caldwell's bias. Nguyen's clerk replied fast, scheduling a hearing in 3 days, a crack of light in Marcus's storm. He walked taller, thinking the protest would amplify it, force the feds to act, maybe even sway the Supreme Court to hold his clerkship. Lena warned him protests could backfire, spark arrests, but Marcus shook his head, saying silence was death, they had to roar. The rally hit at noon, 3,000 strong outside the courthouse, a sea of signs, drums, chants shaking the stone walls. Marcus stood on a makeshift stage, megaphone in hand, his navy jacket soaked with sweat under the 80-degree sun. He spoke from his gut, tearing into Caldwell's lies, the system's weight on black lives, his voice cracking as he named his mother's fear, his mentor's fall. The crowd roared, phones streaming live, the video hitting millions online. Clips going viral, Marcus's face no longer a villain's but a fighter's, his clerkship a symbol of dreams under siege. Reporters swarmed, some skeptical, others moved, their cameras catching every word, the tide turning, headlines shifting, calling Caldwell corrupt, demanding answers. Marcus stepped down, heart pounding, feeling the jury might see this, rethink the video, the emails, maybe acquit. Lena hugged him, whispering they'd done it. Nguyen would hear them. Caldwell was cornered. Marcus nodded, hope surging, picturing the federal hearing as his lifeline, the protest, his shield. He sent Nguyen's clerk a link to the rally, proof of public outcry, expecting her to push harder, maybe suspend Caldwell himself. The crowd chanted louder, marching to City Hall, Marcus leading, thinking he'd flipped the script, turned Caldwell's trap into his triumph. Then it unraveled. His phone buzzed, a text from an activist, Tyrell, who'd helped plan the march. Tyrell was frantic, saying he'd been approached by a man, Slick, offering cash to flip on Marcus, claim he'd paid for violence, incited a riot. Marcus's blood ran cold, realizing Caldwell's reach, but Tyrell swore he'd refused, stayed, loyal. Before Marcus could reply, sirens screamed, dozens of police in riot gear storming the rally, batons raised, tear gas canisters hissing. The crowd scattered, screams rising, but Marcus froze, seeing Tyrell tackled, cuffed. a cop shouting Marcus's name, claiming he'd ordered an attack. Cameras rolled, live feeds catching Marcus's face as police swarmed him, wrenching his arms, slamming him to the pavement, cuffs biting his wrists. His supporters shouted, some fighting back, others filming, the scene chaos broadcast to millions. Lena yelled, trying to reach him, but cops pushed her back, her voice lost in the din. Marcus's head spun, asphalt scraping his cheek, realizing Tyrell hadn't stayed loyal, or worse, Caldwell had framed him anyway. Planting lies to turn protest into crime. He was dragged to a van, cameras flashing, the feed cutting to newsrooms, branding him a rioter, his clerkship's last thread snapping. At the precinct, Marcus sat chained, lights buzzing, a new charge slapped on, inciting violence, a felony that could bury him for years. Lena got through, her face grim, saying Guyon's clerk had called. The federal hearing delayed, spooked by the riot. Caldwell's allies whispering Marcus was dangerous, unfit for law. His mother's voice cracked over a brief call, begging him to plead guilty, save himself. But Marcus refused, eyes hard, knowing Caldwell had orchestrated this, bribed Tyrell or faked it all, turning his stand into a cage. The cell door slammed, his protest's fire snuffed, but Marcus's mind raced, plotting his next move, unaware Caldwell's cruelest blow was loading, aimed at his family, his soul, his everything. Marcus Ellison's wrists ached, the cold steel cuffs digging into his skin as he sat in a dank Atlanta cell, the stench of bleach and despair thick in the air. At 32, he'd never seen a jail's inside, but now he was trapped, framed, for inciting violence at his own protest. Judge Raymond Caldwell's latest blow landing like a sledgehammer. The riot charge was a lie, broadcast live to millions, his Supreme Court clerkship fading like a dream in the dark. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows, each flicker mocking his hope. His arrest replayed in his mind, the chaos of batons, tear gas, cameras catching his fall, Tyrell's betrayal or Caldwell's cunning turning his rally into a trap. Lena, his lawyer, had promised to fight, but hours stretched with no word, the precinct's walls swallowing sound, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts. Footsteps echoed, heavy boots on concrete, and a guard loomed at the bars, a beefy man with a shaved head, his badge reading Carter, eyes glinting with contempt. Carter barked for Marcus to stand, his tone laced with something personal, a hate. Marcus knew too well, rooted in skin, not crime. He complied, slow, keeping his gaze steady, refusing to bow. Carter led him to a holding area, other inmates watching, some jeering, others silent, their faces a mix of fear and defiance. Marcus spotted a skinny man, mid-20s, with a bruised cheek, staring too long, whispering to another, their laughs sharp, orchestrated. He sensed Caldwell's hand, not just in the charge, but here, inside, the jail a new battlefield. Carter shoved him toward a corner, muttering about troublemakers, his grip bruising Marcus's arm, promising worse if he stepped out of line. Marcus bit back a retort, knowing words were bullets he couldn't afford, not yet. The cell block was a maze, shouts bouncing off walls, guards barking, inmates eyeing him like prey. Carter locked him in a smaller cell, shared with 3 others, all bigger, their stares hard, one flashing a shank under his sleeve, a warning Marcus read clear. He sat on a bunk, mind racing, plotting survival, knowing Caldwell's reach didn't. Stop at the courthouse. A new guard appeared at shift change, older, black, with grey stubble and tired eyes, badge reading Ellis. Unlike Carter, Ellis moved quiet, slipping Marcus extra water, his nod subtle, a signal of something shared. Marcus watched him cautious, trust a luxury he'd lost with Clarence's betrayal. Days blurred, each one harsher, Carter's crew tightening the screws, food trays short, showers cut, whispers of Marcus's case fueling taunts. The shank wielder, a hulking man called Deke, cornered him in the yard, his breath sour, saying word was out, Marcus was a snitch, marked for pain. Marcus stood tall, talking him down, citing law, street code, anything to stall. But Deke's eyes stayed dead, Caldwell's orders clear. Ellis caught it, stepping in, sending Deke off with a glare. No words, just presence. That night, Ellis lingered at Marcus's cell, voice low, saying he'd heard things, guards talking. Carter bragging about a judge pulling strings, wanting Marcus broken, maybe dead. Marcus's pulse spiked, seeing a crack, asking Ellis to talk off record somewhere safe. Ellis hesitated, then nodded, slipping him a folded note, naming a time, a blind spot in the cameras. They met at midnight, a storage room, mops and buckets, hiding their whispers. Ellis spilled, voice shaking, saying Carter got calls from a courthouse line, orders to isolate Marcus, stage an incident, make it look like inmate beef. He'd seen papers, memos with Caldwell's seal, not direct, but close, hinting at bonuses for guards who played along. Marcus pressed, begging for proof, and Ellis, torn, pulled a crumpled memo from his pocket, showing Carter's name, a date, a phrase, handle the Ellison problem. It wasn't a smoking gun, but it burned hot, enough to light a fire. Marcus swore to protect Ellis, promising his story would break Caldwell, free them both. He smuggled the memo out, using a kitchen worker, a kid who owed Ellis, slipping it to Lena in a visit. Marcus felt hope, picturing Lena storming Nguyen's federal court with it, the riot charge dropped, Caldwell exposed, his clerkship saved. Lena got bail moving, allies outside raising funds, the memo leaking to a blogger, whispers online calling it a conspiracy, Marcus's name trending again, not as a rioter but a target. He walked the cell block taller, thinking he'd flipped Caldwell's game, the judge's grip slipping. Then it crashed. Carter stormed in at dawn, face red, dragging Marcus to an office, saying an inmate snitched. Marcus attacked a guard, a new charge stacking years. Marcus shouted it was lies, but Carter grinned, tossing him into solitary, a 6x8 box, no light, no sound, just walls closing in. Lena's calls stopped, her access blocked, and Marcus learned Ellis was gone, transferred or worse, no. Trace? His mother called once, voice breaking, saying goons trailed her, slashed her tires again, begging him to plead guilty, save himself. Marcus refused, clutching the bunk, guilt choking him. Knowing Caldwell had silenced Ellis, framed him again, turned his proof into dust. The solitary door locked, his hope flickering, but Marcus's mind burned, plotting escape, revenge, unaware. Caldwell's next strike was bigger, aimed at his name, his future, forever. If you're sick of Caldwell's jailhouse traps, comment number 1 to call him out, hit like to stand with Marcus, and subscribe for the next twist, because this cage won't hold him. What happens when proof vanishes? If you're moved by Ellis's risky stand, comment number 1 to honor him. Smash like for Marcus's fight and subscribe to see his fire, because the system's tightening its grip. Can he break free? If you're raging at this solitary hell, comment number 1 to demand justice. Tap like for Marcus's heart, and subscribe for more, because truth's buried deep. Will Caldwell's empire ever fall? Marcus Ellison's mind clawed for light in the suffocating black of solitary confinement. The Atlanta jail's 6x8 cell, a tomb where time dissolved. At 32, he'd faced lies, betrayal, and cuffs, but this was worse. Judge Raymond. Caldwell's frame-up for inciting violence and a staged assault burying him deeper. His Supreme Court clerkship, a fading pulse. The air was stale, walls damp, each creak of the prison a taunt, reminding him of Ellis's vanished courage, the smuggled memo that promised freedom now dust. His body ached, bruises from Carter's rough hands throbbing, but his spirit burned, fueled by thoughts of his mother, her voice cracking over their last call, begging him to plead guilty, save himself from Caldwell's wrath. Marcus refused, whispering to the dark, vowing to fight, to expose the judge who'd turned justice into a noose. Days bled into nights, marked only by trays slid through a slot, gruel barely edible, Carter's sneers a constant shadow. Marcus scratched plans into his mind. No paper, no pen, plotting how to reach Lena, get word to Judge Nguyen, revive the federal probe stalled by his arrest. He pictured his protest, 3,000 strong, their chants still echoing online, a spark. That could reignite if he could just get out. His chance came at week's end. A new guard, young, nervous, replacing Carter for a shift, his badge reading Tate. Tate's eyes flickered with something human, not hate, when he opened the cell, muttering about a lawyer visit. leading Marcus to a room where Lena waited, her face gaunt but fierce. She hugged him. Whispering bail was close, funded by allies, the memos leak stirring online buzz. Bloggers calling Caldwell corrupt, not Marcus. She'd pushed Nguyen's clerk, demanding action, saying the riot charge was a lie. Ellis's. Words proof of a setup. Marcus gripped her hand, heart lifting, asking if the Supreme Court knew if his clerkship held. Lena's nod was cautious, saying she'd sent them everything. But their reply was cold, needing him cleared, no scandals. Marcus exhaled, sensing a crack, a path back, if he could just survive this cage. Lena slipped him a burner phone, risky, hidden in a legal pad, urging him to call an activist, Maya, who'd rallied since the protest spreading his story. Marcus returned to solitary, the phone a secret fire waiting for Tate's next shift. At midnight he dialed Maya, her voice a lifeline, saying she'd dug into his clerkship, confirmed it was real, no fraud like Caldwell's leaks claimed. She planned to blast it online, tell the world Marcus was the Supreme Court's pick, framed to stop him, a black man rising too high. Marcus warned her to be careful, Caldwell's reach deep, but Maya laughed, saying truth was her shield. The leak dropping tomorrow. He hung up, hope surging, picturing Caldwell's face when the news hit, his lies crumbling, the jury rethinking, Nguyen acting fast. By morning, Maya delivered. Social media exploded, posts screaming Marcus's clerkship, screenshots of his appointment letter, stolen from the hacked emails but now flipped, proving his merit, not deceit. News picked it up, anchors debating, some calling him a victim, others Caldwell's pawn. But the tide shifted, hashtags trending, his name no longer mud but a cause. Lena got word to him, smuggled via Tate, saying the Supreme Court's justice. Eleanor Gray was livid, demanding his release, citing his record, his brilliance. Marcus grinned in the dark, thinking he'd won, Caldwell cornered, his bail hours away. He was freed at noon, cuffs off, stepping into sunlight. Lena at his side, cameras flashing, supporters chanting, a crowd smaller than the protest but fierce, signs naming him clerk, not criminal. Marcus breathed free air, 72 degrees. Atlanta's skyline sharp, feeling the clerkship close, Caldwell's grip slipping. He drove to court, a special hearing called, Nguyen's order forcing Caldwell to face him. The courtroom buzzed, packed, the black juror from his trial there, her braids tight, eyes proud, whispering to others, faith restored. Marcus stood tall, Lena beside him, ready to reveal his clerkship, make Caldwell choke on his lies. He spoke, voice clear, naming himself the Supreme Court's choice, every word a hammer, Caldwell's face paling, his gavel frozen, the room erupting, supporters shouting, vicars stammering, no rebuttal ready. Marcus laid out the memo, Ellis's words, the video's fraud, the hack source, tying it to Caldwell, demanding dismissal. Nguyen watched via video, her nod sharp, promising a ruling soon, bail holding, Marcus free for now. He left court, heart soaring, thinking he'd broken Caldwell, saved his future, the clerkship his again. Lena warned him to stay low, but Marcus felt untouchable, the crowd's roar his shield. Then it shattered. His phone lit up a news alert, vicious, claiming he'd forged his clerkship, doctored the letter, scammed the Supreme Court. The story cited anonymous sources, emails from a fake justice's aide, all lies but polished, spread by a network of blogs tied to Caldwell's allies. Marcus's stomach dropped, Lena cursing, tracing it to Brightwave, the same firm behind the video, now striking harder. The Supreme Court emailed, tone final, pausing his start date, pending investigation. Gray's support wobbling under pressure from Caldwell's friends, senators whispering fraud. Marcus stood frozen, the crowd thinning, some doubting, reporters circling, asking if he'd lied. He swore he hadn't, but their pens moved, stories twisting, his name mud again. Lena pulled him away, saying they'd fight it, but Marcus's mind spun, seeing Caldwell's smirk, the judge's refusal to lose. That night, driving home, his car swerved, tires screeching, a shadow vehicle ramming him off a quiet road. Marcus gripped the wheel, heart pounding, crashing into a ditch, airbags bursting, pain shooting through his chest. He staggered out, Blood trickling, seeing tail lights vanish. No plates. Caldwell's goons clear. His phone was dead, the road empty. His clerkship, his life teetering, Caldwell's shadow growing, ready to crush him for good. Marcus Ellison's breath came in ragged gasps, his chest throbbing from the car crash that nearly claimed him. The ditch's mud clinging to his shoes as he stumbled under Atlanta's moonless sky. At 32, he'd dodged death before, but Judge Raymond Caldwell's goons had struck hard, their taillights vanishing after ramming him, a message to quit or bleed. His Supreme Court clerkship, briefly revived by his courtroom stand, now teetered again, smeared by lies claiming he'd faked his role, the justice's pause cutting deep. Blood trickled from his temple, his phone dead, but Marcus's mind burned, piecing together the attack, tying it to Caldwell, to Brightwave, the tech firm behind the video and hack. He limped a mile to a gas station, its neon flickering, borrowing a clerk's phone to call Lena, his voice hoarse, telling her he was alive, hurt but unbroken. She sped to him, her sedan screeching into the lot, her face pale as she saw his bruises, insisting on a hospital. But Marcus refused, saying Caldwell's eyes were everywhere. They needed to move, strike back. Lena drove him to her office, a cramped space stacked with files, where Maya, the activist who'd leaked his clerkship, waited, her laptop glowing with data. Marcus slumped in a chair, pain spiking, but hope flickered as Maya revealed what she'd found, digging since the eye smear. Brightwave wasn't just a tech firm. It was a front for a lobbying group, Patriot Voice, a shadowy outfit funding racist campaigns, tied to senators, judges, Caldwell himself. Marcus's pulse raced, seeing the thread, the machine behind his ruin. Maya had hacked their server, risky, but bold, pulling emails, ledgers, memos showing Patriot Voice paid for the video, the hack, even the crash, all to stop a black man from the Supreme Court's shadow. Marcus grinned through the pain, knowing this was gold, a chance to bury Caldwell, save his clerkship, clear his name. Lena warned the hack was illegal, could backfire, but Marcus shook his head, saying legal had failed, this was war, and truth was their bomb. They worked through the night, Marcus ignoring his ribs ache, sorting files, finding a memo naming Caldwell, not direct but close, ordering neutralization of a clerkship candidate, dated the day Marcus was framed. Another email linked, Patriot Voice to Carter, the jail guard, bonuses for handling him in solitary. Marcus's hands shook, rage mixing with hope, picturing this leaked, Caldwell's allies scattering, the jury turning, Justice Gray reinstating him. They chose a national outlet, The Beacon, clean untied to Caldwell's web, and Maya sent the files anonymous, with a note framing Marcus as a target, not a fraud. By dawn, The Beacon ran it, headlines screaming corruption, Patriot Voice exposed. Caldwell's name splashed, not indicted but tainted, his photo grim beside Marcus's, the clerkship real, the frame-up clear. Social media erupted, millions sharing, activists chanting Marcus's name, protests flaring outside Patriot Voice's offices, a glass tower now picketed, its logo a curse. Lena's phone buzzed, allies reporting senators distancing, Caldwell's, donors bailing, his empire cracking. Marcus stood wincing, feeling the tide shift, his clerkship close, the riot charge wobbling, Nguyen's federal probe likely to restart. He called his mother, her voice lighter, saying neighbors rallied, cleaned the vandalism, believed him now. The news their shield. Marcus exhaled, thinking he'd done it, flipped Caldwell's game, the crash a price for victory. Lena hugged, him saying they'd win, but her eyes stayed sharp, sensing Caldwell's silence, too quiet for a man cornered. Marcus nodded, ready to rest, regroup, but his phone lit up, a text from an unknown number, a photo of him limping from the ditch, proof someone watched, waited. Before he could process, news broke, a federal warrant for his arrest claiming he'd hacked Patriot Voice, stole their data, a cybercrime carrying years. Marcus's heart sank. Lena cursing, tracing the warrant to Caldwell's allies, a judge in his pocket, the charge a lie but tight, built on Maya's hack, flipped to bury him. He was a fugitive now, bail revoked, Riot charge still live. Clerkship. Frozen again. Lena urged him to hide, but worse hit. His mother called, sobbing, saying their home was gone, burned to ash. Firefighters calling it arson. No suspects, but Caldwell's mark clear. Marcus clutched the phone, guilt crushing him, his family homeless, his fight costing everything. Maya offered a safe house, but Marcus refused, eyes hard, saying running was death. He'd face the warrant, expose Caldwell, save his sister, his mother, his name. Lena packed their files, Maya wiping her drives, but police sirens wailed, closing. In Caldwell's trap snapping shut. Marcus bolted, heart pounding, the beacon story his only shield, but Caldwell's shadow loomed, bigger, crueler, ready to hunt him down. If you're cheering Marcus's bold leak, comment number 1 to stand tall, hit like for his fire and subscribe for the next twist, because this chase is on. What happens when truth makes you a target? If you're gutted by his family's loss, comment number 1 to mourn with them. Smash like for Marcus's heart and subscribe to see his fight, because the system's claws are sharp. Can he outrun Caldwell's lies? If you're raging at this fugitive trap, comment number 1 to call it out, tap like for Marcus's stand, and subscribe for more because justice is bleeding. Will he rise or fall? Marcus Ellison's breath fogged in the chill of an Atlanta alley, his pulse hammering as he crouched behind a dumpster, the wail of police sirens fading into the night. At 32, he was a fugitive, framed by Judge Raymond Caldwell for hacking. Patriot Voice, the lobbying group exposed as his puppet, his family's home now ashes, his Supreme Court clerkship a ghost in the wind. The federal warrant branded him a cyber criminal, a lie spun from his leak to the Beacon, which had shaken Caldwell's empire, senators scattering, allies turning, yet the judge's claws tightened, striking Marcus where it hurt most. His ribs ached from the car crash, his temple scarred, but guilt over his mother's loss burned hotter, her sobs echoing, blaming his fight, though she'd never say it. Lena had urged him to hide, Maya offering a safe house, but Marcus refused, knowing running was surrender, Caldwell's victory. He slipped through shadows, hoodie up, dodging streetlights, heading for a meet with ex-inmates and activists, a crew forged in the protest's fire, loyal despite the heat. They gathered in a shuttered bar, its windows boarded, air thick with dust and defiance. 6 sat around a scarred table, faces hard. 2 from jail knowing Carter's cruelty. 3 from the rally, Maya their spark, her laptop glowing with plans. Marcus stood, voice low, laying out the leak's impact, Patriot Voice bleeding. Caldwell cornered, but his warrant and the arson a desperate counterpunch. He proposed a bold strike, infiltrate a gala where Caldwell planned his comeback, a glitzy event for Atlanta's elite, Patriot Voice donors mingling, plotting to save their judge. Marcus had intel from Maya, a hacked invite list showing Caldwell speaking. His speech a plea to crush threats like Marcus, coded hate to rally his base. The crew nodded, eyes fierce, ready to crash it, expose Caldwell mid-toast, broadcast his truth to millions. Marcus assigned roles, Maya on tech, rigging a live feed, ex-inmates on muscle, blending as staff, activists slipping in as guests, himself the spear, confronting Caldwell face to face. Lena arrived late, her face grim, warning the gala was a fortress, security tight, FBI sniffing since the warrant. Marcus pushed back, saying waiting was death. The gala their shot to flip the riot charge, revive his clerkship, save his family. They prepped fast, Maya hacking cameras, mapping exits, the crew stealing uniforms, Marcus memorizing the ballroom's layout, its chandeliers and velvet a mask for rot. The night came, a crisp 70 degrees, the gala at a downtown hotel, its marble lobby gleaming, limos clogging Peachtree Street. Marcus slipped in, dressed as a waiter, tray in hand, heart pounding, Maya's voice in his earpiece guiding him past guards. The ballroom buzzed, 500 suits and gowns, Caldwell at the dais, silver hair slick, voice smooth, railing against chaos, naming no names but winking at Marcus's ruin. Maya patched the feed, Marcus's crew ready, phones live, streaming. To thousands, then millions as activists boosted it. Marcus ditched the tray, stepping into light, hoodie gone, suit sharp, his face bold, interrupting Caldwell mid-sentence. He spoke, voice thunder, naming the judge's lies, the video, the hack, the crash, the arson. Patriot Voices cache, Carter's jail memos, every sin laid bare. The crowd gasped, some booing, others frozen, Caldwell's face twisting, his gavel powerless here. Marcus held up his phone, playing Clarence's confession, Ellis's memo, Beacon's leak, the room erupting, donors shouting, cameras rolling, the feed hitting 10 million views, trending global, Caldwell's name mud, his comeback, ash. Security lunged, but Marcus's crew blocked them. Ex-inmates staring down guards, activists filming, Maya's hack looping the truth on every screen. Caldwell stammered, fleeing the dais, his empire crumbling, senators in the crowd slipping. Out, phones buzzing with panic. Marcus stood tall, thinking he'd won. The riot charge dead, his clerkship close, Nguyyen's probe sure to nail Caldwell now. He pictured his mother smiling, their home rebuilt, his name clear. The crowd thinned, supporters chanting outside, news vans swarming. Marcus ready to walk free, Lena waiting to file motions, Maya grinning, her feed a wildfire. Then his earpiece crackled, Maya's voice frantic, saying she'd lost contact with his sister, Amara, 26, who'd stayed with friends for safety. Marcus froze, heart sinking, asking where, when. Maya stammered, saying Amara was grabbed, a van, no plates, an hour ago, a note left, demanding Marcus delete the feed, retract everything, or she'd die. His knees buckled, guilt crashing, knowing Caldwell's loyalists, maybe Patriot Voices' hired muscle, had struck, refusing to let him win. Lena pulled him out, sirens nearing, FBI closing, the warrant live, riot charge still hanging. Marcus faced a choice, surrender to save Amara, delete the truth, or fight, risk her life. He chose fight, mind racing, rallying the crew, Maya tracking. Amara's phone, last pinged at a warehouse 20 miles out. They piled into a van, Marcus's ribs screaming, his resolve iron planning a rescue, knowing Caldwell's men waited, armed, ruthless. As they sped off, the hotel's lights faded, but a new blow landed. Maya's laptop pinging, showing Caldwell's team hacking their feed, twisting it, claiming Marcus staged the gala, a fugitive stunt, not truth. The crowd outside wavered, some doubting, news flipping, his name teetering again. Marcus gripped the wheel, eyes hard, ready to save Amara, expose Caldwell, but the warehouse loomed, a trap deadlier than any. Caldwell's shadow laughing, his sister's life the bait. Marcus Ellison's knuckles whitened on the van's wheel, his eyes locked on the dark Atlanta highway. The city's glow fading as he sped toward a warehouse 20 miles out, where his sister Amara was held by Judge Raymond Caldwell's goons. At 32, Marcus had faced lies, betrayal, and near death. But this cut deepest, Amara, 26, kidnapped to silence his gala stunt, where he'd exposed Caldwell's racist empire to millions. His Supreme Court clerkship hung by a thread, the riot charge and fugitive warrant chaining him, his family's home ashes, but Amara's life was everything now. His ribs throbbed from the crash, his temple scarred, but adrenaline drowned the pain. His crew packed tight in the van, faces grim, ready to strike. Maya, the activist, hunched over her laptop, tracking Amara's phone. Its last ping a faint pulse from a derelict industrial park, all rusted silos and cracked lots. Lena sat shotgun, her voice steady, mapping exits, warning of traps, saying Caldwell's men weren't street thugs, but hired muscle, maybe ex-cops. Patriot Voices payroll deep. The ex-inmates, Jamal and Rico, checked stolen pistols, their jail scars a bond with Marcus, while activists Ty and Zara loaded flashlights. Zip ties, their protest fire now a rescue spark. Marcus briefed them, voice low, plan simple. Infiltrate, grab Amara, expose the kidnappers. Get out before FBI or Caldwell's allies swarmed. His warrant live, every second a risk. The warehouse loomed at midnight, a hulking shell under a 60-degree sky, its windows black, chain-link fence sagging. A single van parked, no plates, tire tracks fresh. Marcus parked a quarter-mile off, crew moving silent. Maya jamming nearby cameras, her hacker ghost in the grid. They cut through the fence, Jamal's bolt cutters quick, Rico scouting, spotting 2 guards, burly, armed, pacing the loading dock. Marcus signaled. Ty and Zara circling, flashlights off, while he and Jamal crept closer, Lena and Maya behind, eyes sharp for Amara's sign. The dock's door was ajar, a faint cry echoing, Amara's voice, scared but alive, Marcus's heart. Lurching, urging him to rush, but Lena's grip held him, whispering patience, trap likely. They waited, Rico tossing a rock, drawing 1 guard out, Jamal tackling him, zip-tying fast, gagged tight, no sound. The second guard turned, but Zara's flashlight blinded him, Ty pinning him, their moves smooth, practiced from protests turned battles. Marcus slipped inside. The warehouse a maze of crates, dust thick, air sour. Amara's cries louder, guiding him to a back room, its door steel, locked. Maya pulled a lockpick, hands shaking, popping it in seconds, Marcus bursting through, finding Amara bound to a chair. Her braids loose, eyes wide, a bruise on her cheek but breathing, alive. He cut her ropes, whispering her name, her arms wrapping him, sobs muffled, saying they'd threatened to kill her unless he erased the gala feed, buried Caldwell's truth. Marcus swore he wouldn't, helping her stand, Lena scouting, urging. Speed, the crew regrouping, ready to bolt. They moved out, Amara leaning on Marcus, the warehouse dark, but a new sound froze them, boots thudding, voices barking, flashlights slicing the black. Caldwell's muscle, 6 strong, had circled back, tipped off maybe by a traitor, maybe cameras Maya missed. Marcus pushed Amara behind a crate, signaling the crew, Jamal and Rico drawing guns, Ty and Zara ducking, Lena pulling a taser, Maya's laptop shut, useless now. The muscle opened fire, bullets pinging crates, Marcus's crew returning shots, chaos erupting, sparks flying in the dark. Marcus shielded Amara, crawling low, aiming for the dock, Lena tasering a goon, his scream sharp, Rico winging another, their path clearing. They hit the exit, piling into the van. Marcus flooring it, tires screeching, bullets grazing the hull, Amara sobbing, crew counting heads, all alive, bruised but whole. They ditched the van 5 miles out, splitting to a safe house, Maya's friend's garage, its walls lined with tools, air thick with oil. Marcus checked Amara, her bruise swelling but her spirit fierce, saying she'd fight too, no quitting. Lena called allies, leaking the rescue to bloggers, framing it as Caldwell's desperation. Kidnappers tied to Patriot Voice, photos of the warehouse spreading, news picking it up, calling Marcus a hero, not a fugitive. Social media roared, millions. Sharing, protests flaring again, his name trending, riot charge wobbling, clerkship flickering back. Lena said Nguyen's probe might restart, the FBI rethinking the warrant, Caldwell's allies quiet, spooked. Marcus exhaled, thinking he'd won Amara safe, truth out, his family's pain eased. He pictured his mother rebuilding, Justice Gray calling, his future his again. Lena smiled rare, saying they'd done it, but her eyes stayed sharp, sensing Caldwell's silence, too still for a man crushed. Marcus nodded, ready to rest. But sirens wailed, not police but news vans. Then a text from Maya, frantic, saying a militia, racist, armed, had his safe house's address, leaked by Caldwell's loyalists, maybe the same goons now hunting him. Marcus's blood ran cold, crew grabbing gear, Amara trembling, Lena cursing, saying they'd fight, no running. The safe house shook as trucks roared up, headlights blinding, militia shouting slurs, rifles glinting, Marcus's crew barricading, shots ringing out, glass shattering, his heart pounding. Knowing Caldwell had flipped his rescue, turned hero to prey. They fought back, Jamal and Rico firing, Ty tossing bottles, Zara screaming defiance, Marcus shielding Amara. But numbers overwhelmed, forcing a backdoor run, Maya's laptop left, proof gone. They hit the woods, branches snapping, militia close, Marcus's hope fading, learning via radio Caldwell's final card. A grand jury rigged to indict him for terrorism, life in prison, his clerkship dead, his sister's rescue a spark snuffed by hate storm, Caldwell's shadow laughing, bigger, crueler, forever. Marcus Ellison's lungs burned as he stumbled through the dense woods outside Atlanta. the sting of branches cutting his skin, his sister Amara clinging to his arm, her breaths ragged from their escape. At 32, Marcus was a fugitive, hunted by a racist militia sent by Judge Raymond Caldwell, their safe house now a smoking ruin, his crew scattered but alive, dodging bullets and hate. The terrorism charge Caldwell had rigged, a grand jury indictment for his gala stunt and rescue, loomed. Like a guillotine threatening life in prison, his Supreme Court clerkship a fading dream. The night was cold, 55 degrees, stars hidden, only Maya's faint phone signal guiding them to a ditch where Lena waited, her sedan idling, headlights off. Marcus pushed Amara in, collapsing beside her, Rico and Jamal piling in, Ty and Zara still running, safe, they hoped. Lena floored it, tires spitting gravel, her face grim, saying the militia's leak came from Caldwell's inner circle, the grand jury, his final play to bury Marcus forever. His ribs ached from the warehouse fight, his heart heavier with Amara's bruise. His mother's burned home, every stand costing more, yet he refused to break, mind racing for a counterstrike. Lena had a plan, risky, insane. But their only shot, infiltrate the grand jury session, set for dawn in a federal courthouse sealed tight but not airtight. Maya, hacking from a burner laptop, found a gap, a janitor's passcode, enough to slip Marcus in, let him speak, expose Caldwell before the indictment locked. Marcus nodded, knowing failure meant arrest, but silence was death, his clerkship, his name, Amara's safety all on the line. They ditched the sedan in a lot, switching to a stolen van, Maya guiding them to a contact, an ex-clerk with courthouse keys, loyal to justice, not Caldwell. By 3 in the morning, Marcus stood in a back alley, janitor's jumpsuit itching, passcode memorized, Lena and Amara hiding nearby, Rico and Jamal watching exits, Maya jamming feeds to blind security. The courthouse was a stone beast, its halls empty, air thick with wax and power, each step echoing as Marcus slipped past guards, heart pounding, the grand jury room a vault on the 5th floor. He cracked the door, finding 18 jurors, mixed, faces some tired, others sharp, a prosecutor, Vickers, Caldwell's lapdog, spinning lies showing the gala feed, twisted to paint Marcus a terrorist, masterminding riots, hacks, kidnappings. Marcus stepped in, hood down, voice steady, interrupting Vickers, who froze, eyes wide, jurors gasping, some recognizing him from news, the black woman juror from his trial there, her braids tight, nodding slightly, faith flickering. He spoke. No notes, just truth, laying out Caldwell's web, the fake video, hacked emails, Clarence's betrayal, Ellis's memo, Patriot Voice's cache, the crash, the arson, Amara's kidnapping, the militia's guns, every blow tied to a judge who hated his skin, his rise, his clerkship. He played Maya's audio, stolen from the safe house, Caldwell's voice, not direct but damning, ordering problems fixed, jurors leaning forward, Vickers stammering, no rebuttal ready. Marcus named the terrorism charge a sham, showing Nguyen's probe files leaked by Lena, proving Caldwell's bias, his bribes, his fear of a black man in the Supreme Court's shadow. The room shifted, jurors whispering, the black woman's eyes wet. A white man, grey-haired, nodding slow, others torn, Vickers shouting objections. But Marcus kept on, voice rising, saying he fought for them, for justice, not chaos, begging them to see truth, not lies. He felt the tide turn, jurors wavering, Caldwell's indictment close, the terrorism charge cracking, his clerkship glinting, Amara's smile near. He pictured Nguyen watching, the FBI rethinking, his mother rebuilding, hope alive. Vickers called. Security. But Marcus stood firm, finishing, jurors clapping, some shouting, Vickers red-faced, powerless. Marcus expected freedom, the jury his shield, Caldwell's empire ash. Then it flipped. A juror, young, nervous, stood, accusing Marcus of coercion, claiming he'd threatened her last night, a lie. Her voice shaky, eyes darting to Vickers, who smirked, Caldwell's hand clear. The foreman halted, chaos erupting, guards bursting in, cuffs ready, the session voided, Marcus's words erased, the indictment paused, but his arrest live, terrorism charge still hanging, clerkship frozen. Vickers crowed, saying Marcus's stunt proved his guilt, jurors turning, the black woman doubting. Her nod gone, others glaring, trust broken. Lena's burner buzzed. Meyer warning Caldwell's allies pushed to revoke his clerkship permanently. Senators calling him a fraud. Justice Gray silent, swayed by lies. Marcus's wrists bled under cuffs, guards dragging him, but Lena slipped. Through whispering she'd found the jurors' bank records, bribes from Patriot Voice. Proof Caldwell rigged it, but time was gone. Marshals closing, FBI vans outside, warrant active, riot charge alive. Marcus's heart sank, seeing Caldwell's smirk. The judge's refusal to lose, turning his stand into chains. Hamara's voice echoed, begging him to fight. But the courthouse spun, guards shoving, Lena shouting motions, Meyer's signal fading, his crew scattered, Woods' safety gone. He faced jail again, terrorism looming. But worse, a call from his mother sobbing, saying goons watched her shelter, tires slashed, fear choking her. All because he spoke. Marcus's guilt crushed him, his fight costing everything, yet he refused to plead, eyes hard, knowing Caldwell's bribe was proof, if he could just reach it. The marshals loomed, courthouse doors slamming, his clerkship, his name teetering, Caldwell's shadow growing. But Marcus's mind burned, one last play forming, unaware the judge's cruelest card was dealt, waiting to end him forever. Marcus Ellison's wrists bled under the marshal's cuffs, the federal courthouse's marble corridors blurring as they dragged him toward a holding cell, his breath sharp with rage and desperation. At 32, he'd fought a war against Judge Raymond Caldwell, a racist titan who'd framed him for assault riots, hacking, terrorism. Each lie a brick in a wall meant to bury him alive. His Supreme Court clerkship, once a beacon, now flickered, choked by a grand jury's voided session, a juror's false coercion claim, Caldwell's bribe, erasing his stand, the terrorism charge looming, life in prison close. Amara's rescue, the gala's truth, Patriot Voice's exposure, all teetered, his mother's voice echoing, sobbing from a shelter 20 miles away, goons stalking her, tires slashed, fear her cage because Marcus dared speak. The marshal's boots echoed, their grips iron, but Marcus's mind burned, Lena's last whisper ringing. The jurors' bank records showing Patriot Voice's cash, proof Caldwell rigged it, if he could just reach it. His crew was scattered. Maya's signal dead, Rico and Jamal lost in the woods, Ty and Zara hiding, Lena outside, shouting motions drowned by the courthouse's hum. The cell loomed, steel bars glinting, but Marcus refused to break, eyes scanning, plotting one last play, unaware Caldwell's cruelest card was falling, a twist to end him forever. The marshals shoved him in, door slamming, the clang a gunshot in his skull, but Marcus stood tall, pacing the 8x10 box, concrete cold under his torn shoes, his navy suit ripped from the woods run. His ribs throbbed, crash scars aching, Amara's bruise flashing in his mind, her sobs from the warehouse begging him to save her, now safe but hunted, like him. He pictured Caldwell in his chambers, silver hair slick, toasting Vickers, laughing at the jurors' lie, the grand jury's chaos, his empire intact despite the beacon's leak, Patriot Voices bleed, the gala's fire. Marcus's evidence, Clarence's audio, Ellis's memo, Meyer's hacks, lay scattered, some lost, some twisted, the jury's faith flipped by one bought voice, a young woman nervous, her accusation a script, Vickers's smirk her cue. Lena had the bribe proof, but time was ash. Marshals guarding, FBI vans outside, his warrant live, riot charge alive, terrorism the noose. Marcus punched the wall, knuckles splitting, blood smearing, pain sharpening his focus, knowing surrender was death. Not just his, but Amara's, his mother's, every black kid dreaming past the system's chains. He needed out, needed air, needed a stage to scream Caldwell's sins, one last stand to flip this hell. A guard approached, not a marshal, a local badge-reading Hayes, mid-40s, black, eyes tired but flicking with something, not hate, not yet. Hayes unlocked the cell, muttering about a transfer, courthouse to jail, paperwork snafu giving Marcus minutes, not hours. Marcus saw a crack, Hayes's gaze softer than Carter's jail sneer, a man who might listen, not break. He spoke fast. Voice low, naming Caldwell the juror's bribe, Lena's proof his clerkship, not begging but demanding, saying Hayes could be justice, not a cog. Hayes paused, hand on his radio, then nodded, slow, saying he'd heard whispers, courthouse talk of a judge too clean, too cruel. Maybe Marcus wasn't the liar here. He slipped Marcus a burner phone, no promises, just a chance, locking the cell, walking off, his boots fading. Marcus dialed Lena, heart pounding, her voice crackling, saying she'd filed the bribe with Nguyen, rallied bloggers, but FBI was close, courthouse locked, no way in. Marcus told her to push, leak it all. Everything they had, every file, every audio, flood the net, make Caldwell's name poison, force the Supreme Court to see. He called Maya next, her signal weak, Woods hiding her but alive, saying she'd boost it, hit every platform, millions watching, truth their last bomb. By dawn, it hit. Marcus heard shouts beyond the cell, guards' radios buzzing, Hayes back, eyes wide, saying the net was ablaze. Bloggers screaming Caldwell's juror bribe, Patriot voices cash, Nguyen's probe live again, FBI pausing, senators named, fleeing. Marcus grinned, blood crusting his knuckles, picturing Caldwell's face, silver hair trembling, his toast souring. Hayes unlocked the cell. No cuffs, saying marshals were arguing, orders shifting, Nguyen demanding Marcus free, justice graze. Voice on the line, livid, calling his clerkship real, Caldwell's lies ash. Marcus stepped out, legs shaky, air sharp, Hayes leading him to a side exit. Lena waiting, her sedan purring, Amara inside, eyes wet, safe. They sped off, courthouse shrinking, Marcus's mind racing, knowing Caldwell wouldn't quit, not yet. His shadow too deep, too cruel. Lena said Nguyen ruled fast, riot charge dropped, warrant void, terrorism dead. But Caldwell's allies clung, senators stalling, clerkship paused, not gone. Marcus nodded, relief thin, sensing the judge's next. Move bigger, final, aimed at his soul. They hit a rally, unplanned, sparked by Maya's leak. 2,000 strong outside City Hall, a sea of signs, drums, chants shaking the 60-degree morn. Marcus's name a roar, not a curse. He climbed a car hood, megaphone in hand, voice raw, laying out Caldwell's web one last time. The video, the hack, the crash, the arson, Amara's kidnapping, the militia, the juror, every blow tied to a judge who'd rather burn justice than lose. The crowd erupted, phones streaming, millions online, news vans swarming, headlines flipping, calling him hero, not fugitive, Caldwell corrupt, not clean. Marcus felt the tide, his clerkship close, Nguyen's probe nailing Patriot voice, senators. Named FBI raiding Brightwave, Carter's jail logs seized. He pictured Amara safe, his mother rebuilding, Justice Gray calling, his future his. Lena gripped his arm, saying they'd won. Caldwell's empire ash, but her eyes stayed sharp, sensing his silence too still for a man crushed. Then Caldwell struck. He emerged from a black SUV, silver hair wild, face unhinged, striding through. The rally, crowd parting, shocked, guards trailing, Vickers nowhere. Marcus froze, megaphone dropping, seeing madness in Caldwell's eyes, a man broken but unbroken, refusing to lose. Caldwell shouted, voice cracking, naming Marcus a liar, a thug, a fraud, his clerkship stolen. Justice his, not Marcus's, slurs spilling, raw, unscripted, cameras rolling, millions watching. The crowd booed, some rushing, guards holding them, but Caldwell pushed closer, pulling a phone, playing an audio, not Clarence's, not Ellis's, but new. A voice Marcus knew. Amara's, twisted, edited, saying he'd planned it all, riots, hacks, her kidnapping a stunt, all fake. Marcus's heart stopped, knowing it was lies. Caldwell's last forgery, but polished, timed, the crowd wavering, some doubting, shouts turning to murmurs, news vans pouncing, headlines teetering. Before Marcus could speak, a figure lunged, not. A guard, not Lena, but Vickers, Caldwell's lapdog. His suit rumpled, face pale, screaming at Caldwell to stop, shoving him, the audio cutting. Vickers turned to Marcus, voice shaking, saying he'd leaked it. The real truth, Caldwell's lifelong plot, decades of racist fixes, judges bought, black lives crushed, Patriot voice his brainchild, memos proving it all, sent to Nguyen, the beacon, the world. The crowd gasped. Caldwell staggering, Vickers collapsing, sobbing, his betrayal a bomb, cameras zooming, millions frozen. Marcus stood, stunned, the twist hitting, Vickers flipping, Caldwell's own man, his end. Lena pulled up files, Maya's signal back, showing Vickers's leak, memos naming Caldwell orchestrating Marcus's frame from day one. Karen's call, the video, the crash, all his, decades of hate exposed, his silver hair a crown of rot. Caldwell lunged at Marcus, guards too slow, fists swinging, but Marcus ducked, crowd rushing, pulling the judge back, his screams fading, face purple, collapsing, disgraced, done. Marshals swarmed, cuffing him, not Marcus. Nguyens ruling live, Caldwell indicted. Riot charge dead, warrant gone, terrorism ash, clerkship his. Justice Gray called, voice firm, reinstating Marcus, apologizing, saying his fight reshaped the court, the law, forever. The crowd roared, Amara hugging him, Lena grinning, Maya streaming, his mother's shelter safe, goons fleeing, neighbors cheering. Marcus stepped down, legs weak, tears burning, seeing Caldwell hauled off, silver hair matted, empire dust, Vickers's twist the blade, his own ally's knife ending decades of hate. He vowed to the crowd, voice steady, to dismantle bias from the Supreme Court's bench, every law, every life. His clerkship a hammer, not a dream, leaving Atlanta stunned, inspired, his name eternal, Caldwell's shadow gone, justice twisted back, fierce, free, forever. Marcus Ellison's journey reveals profound truths about resilience, justice, and the fight against systemic racism. First, his unwavering determination teaches us that standing firm against injustice, even when the odds stack high, can spark monumental change. Despite false charges, betrayal, and violence, Marcus never surrendered, showing that courage isn't the absence of fear, but action through it. Second, the story exposes the deep roots of prejudice in power structures, from Caldwell's courtroom to Patriot Voice's shadows, urging us to question who wields authority and why. It's a call to recognize that racism isn't just personal bias, but a machine oiled by corruption that demands dismantling. Third, Marcus's allies, Lena, Maya, even Vickers's twist, highlight the power of collective resistance. One voice can ignite, but a chorus can topple empires. Finally, the unexpected reversal with Vickers underscores that truth can emerge from the unlikeliest cracks, reminding us to stay vigilant, adaptable, and hopeful, even in despair. This tale isn't just Marcus's triumph. It's a mirror for our world, challenging us to confront bias, support the oppressed, and fight for equity no matter the cost. So what's your takeaway from Marcus's battle? Comment below if his resilience inspires you. Hit like to stand against racist systems. Subscribe for more stories of justice, and share to spread the fight. Thanks for joining this journey. May you find strength to challenge injustice wherever you stand.